What if Hollywood's silver-haired idol, 6'5", granite-jawed Jeff Chandler, never had to die at all? Imagine a single vial of the wrong antibiotic setting off a chain of panic, secrecy, and payoffs that even 60 years later keep studio vaults slammed shut. Night, newly unearthed medical files and long-buried testimonies ripped the curtain off a tragedy the industry worked hard to forget. Stick around, because the truth behind Chandler's final hours is darker and more personal than even his biggest fans ever imagined. But first, how did a Brooklyn kid named Ira Grossel become Hollywood's most bankable hero? Born Ira Grossel in a scrappy Jewish neighborhood of Brooklyn on December 15, 1918, Chandler was raised in Depression-era hardship but fueled by outsized ambition. He scraped together tuition for the Feagin School of Dramatic Art, working part-time as a soda jerk and theater usher. Nights were spent memorizing Shakespeare under flickering hallway lights. Days were a blur of voice lessons and streetcar rides between cheap auditions. World War II toughened him further. Stationed on Alaska's frigid Aleutian Islands, Lieutenant Chandler absorbed discipline, endurance, and the art of staring down fear, traits that later blazed through his on-screen commanders and gunfighters. Blistering wind, blackout drills, and weeks without mail forged a resilience he would draw on every time a director demanded a 14-hour day. Back home, network radio dramas like Our Miss Brooks and Michael Shane showcased a baritone as smooth as smoked oak. Executives loved the voice, but the camera adored his prematurely silver hair even more. A knife-scarred gangster cameo in Johnny O'Clock, 1947, first popped on studio radar. 3 years later, loaned to Fox for Broken Arrow. His quiet dignity as the Apache chief Cochise earned an Oscar nod and rewrote Hollywood's cardboard portrayals of Native Americans. Overnight, Chandler became the go-to man for characters who blended steel and softness. He was equally convincing barking combat orders or crooning ballads under nightclub spotlights. By 1955, his calendar was insane. 4 pictures a year, 2 Vegas residencies, back-to-back publicity tours, and marathon hours at Universal's backlot, all while squeezing in recording sessions for Decca Records. Yet even meteors cast shadows. Behind the marquee smiles, exhaustion and scandal were already brewing. Chandler wed actress Marjorie Hoschel in 1946 after a whirlwind courtship sparked on a Warner Brothers soundstage. Publicly, they dazzled, arriving at premieres arm in arm, their matching silver convertible flashing paparazzi bulbs. Privately, the marriage cracked under relentless schedules, cross-country press junkets, and Chandler's bone-deep fatigue. Hoschel later described him nodding off mid-party, mid-sentence, anywhere his body could steal a moment's rest. The couple's 2 daughters, Jamie and Dana, were mostly raised by nannies while their fathers sprinted between sets. Repeated separations led to a bruising 1959 divorce, a 6-figure lump sum, hefty alimony and child support, and a legal agreement that barred Hoschel from publishing tell-all memoirs for at least a decade. The payout hinted at Chandler's still-rising earnings. He was pulling in over $250,000 a year when most American houses cost under $15,000. During a 1957 shoot in Italy, he began an affair with swim star Esther Williams. Years later, Williams' memoir detonated with a claim that Chandler enjoyed cross-dressing in private, an allegation that split Hollywood gossip circles. Jane Russell, a close friend, branded the story ridiculous. Others muttered that everyone in Tinseltown had a closet full of secrets. Whatever the truth, the rumor revealed how fast scandal could overshadow substance, and how little refuge even A-listers had from prying eyes. In the background, Chandler's physical pain kept mounting. Lower spine twinges turned into knife-edge agony, fueled by long horse-riding scenes, awkward stunt falls, and the studio's obsession with practical effects. He swallowed pills, downed whiskey, and taped heat pads under costume shirts. On the Philippine set of Merrill's Marauders in April 1961, he collapsed after a casual game of catch. Makeup hid the pallor, but the cameras captured a man moving almost robotically to mask his suffering. Pain, not gossip, was about to push him toward an operating table he would never leave. During a 1957 shoot in Italy, he began an affair with swim star Esther Williams. Years later, Williams' memoir detonated with a claim that Chandler enjoyed cross-dressing in private, an allegation that split Hollywood gossip circles. Jane Russell, a close friend, branded the story ridiculous. Others muttered that everyone in Tinseltown had a closet full of secrets. Whatever the truth, the rumor revealed how fast scandal could overshadow substance, and how little refuge even A-listers had from prying eyes. In the background, Chandler's physical pain kept mounting. Lower spine twinges turned into knife-edge agony, fueled by long horse-riding scenes, awkward stunt falls, and the studio's obsession with practical effects. He swallowed pills, downed whiskey, and taped heat pads under costume shirts. On the Philippine set of Merrill's Marauders in April 1961, he collapsed after a casual game of catch. Makeup hid the pallor, but the cameras captured a man moving almost robotically to mask his suffering. Pain, not gossip, was about to push him toward an operating table he would never leave. The rupture in Chandler's lumbar disc was no minor tweak. Surgeons warned that one wrong twist could paralyze him. Yet studio bosses eyed production calendars and greenlit a quick fix that would supposedly have him back in costume within 6 weeks. Chandler, always the soldier, agreed. Cedars of Lebanon Hospital, then considered one of LA's finest, admitted him for a routine discectomy. Friends later recalled his nervous jokes. "When they straighten my vertebrae, I'll come out 6'6" and put my gray back exactly where you found it. Beneath the humor was real fear. He had an allergy to penicillin so severe his childhood pediatrician once warned it could kill him. That allergy was written in red ink at the top of every chart, every intake form, every clipboard. On May 13th, he kissed his daughters goodnight and checked in, carrying a paperback Western and a stack of fan letters to answer during recovery. An anesthesiologist assured him the operation would take under 2 hours. "You'll be walking laps tomorrow," the nurse promised. Instead, 3 weeks later, he was dead at 42. The official certificate cited septic emboli following post-operative complications. Unofficial whispers said something far more chilling. Hollywood insiders leaked that an artery had been nicked, that staff scrambled to transfuse more than 50 pints of blood, that Chandler flat-lined before he ever left the operating room. Even more alarming, word spread that a penicillin-based antibiotic had been injected despite the red flag allergy. How could a top hospital overlook a warning in neon letters? How could a director and 2 assistant surgeons not notice when he began convulsing on the table? What really happened inside that operating room? Operating notes, later pried loose in court, paint a scene of escalating chaos. Mid-procedure, a surgical instrument slipped, slashing the aortic iliac junction. Blood faster than suction could clear. As the surgical team fought to clamp the tear, a nurse administered an antibiotic infusion. Crystalline penicillin dissolved in saline. Within minutes, Chandler's blood pressure cratered. Rash, wheezing, and violent seizures followed. Surgeons cracked his chest to massage the heart. Another team rushed in for an emergency transfusion. In the confusion, chart entries went unsigned, times were penciled in later, and the drug lot number vanished. Chandler survived the first trauma, but woke days later delirious, tethered to tubes, whispering, "I can't breathe." A second marathon operation 4 days later attempted to patch internal hemorrhaging. A third followed. Reporters gathering in the lobby demanded updates. The hospital stonewalled, issuing bland bulletins about normal post-operative challenges. Chandler's ex-wife flew in and, rattled by his swollen frame and dazed stare, called a private pathologist for a bedside consult. Studio publicists drafted releases blaming an unpredictable infection, hoping to douse rumors before opening weekend of Chandler's latest Western. Nurse Leah Grant, silenced at the time by a confidentiality clause, later told investigators there was palpable panic when Chandler coded and orders were shouted that made no surgical sense. Her affidavit, locked for decades, resurfaced in a neurosurgery journal that labeled the case an inflection point for modern malpractice law. The scandal might have ended with burial, but the Chandlers refused to stay quiet. Hochele, acting for Jamie and Dana, filed a $1.5 million lawsuit against Cedars and 3 attending physicians, astronomical damages for 1961. The complaint alleged negligence, improper drug administration, and deliberate falsification of records. Universal Pictures, desperate to shield its box office asset, dispatched a phalanx of lawyers who lobbied judges to seal testimony and threatened to blacklist any physician who spoke to reporters. Court filings exposed a grim pattern: missing anesthetic records, reused surgical gloves, autoclaves that failed sterilization tests, interns performing tasks without attending supervision, and a senior surgeon who left mid-procedure to field a phone call from his broker. Columnists framed Chandler as a martyr of medical arrogance. Under mounting pressure, the hospital settled quickly, cutting a check for $233,258 and admitting no fault. Adjusted for inflation, that ballooned to roughly $2.3 million. Settlement came at a price. Non-disclosure agreements muzzled witnesses, original OR notes disappeared, and a private judge ordered most exhibits sealed for 50 years. The studio machine exhaled. With the legal dust settled, attention drifted to the next blockbuster premiere. But history has a way of resurfacing, especially in the digital age. For decades, Chandler's death was a footnote, just another tragic complication in Hollywood lore. Then, archivists digitizing courthouse microfilms spotted anomalies. Page numbers jumped, witness lists shrank, and the same typist's initials appeared on depositions dated weeks apart. Medical history scholars began cross-referencing nursing shifts with unsealed payroll ledgers. They discovered overtime sheets for a junior nurse who, according to testimony, never entered the operating suite. In 2016, a Harvard study on malpractice inflation pegged the Chandler payout as a watershed moment. Blogs and YouTube channels picked up the thread, blending detective work with cinematic flair. Videos titled "Hollywood's Deadly Secret" and "Jeff Chandler Files Exposed" racked up millions of views, each dissecting the timeline and highlighting contradictions in official statements. The plot thickened in 2023 when Chandler's eldest daughter, Dana, released a tear-stained vlog revealing she had finally obtained a heavily redacted autopsy addendum. Under thick black bars, one phrase bled through: probable anaphylaxis. Fans launched petitions demanding the hospital's full archival release. Hashtags number Justice for Jeff and number Cedars cover-up trended for days. Pressure mounted on California's Department of Public Health. Reporters filed new Freedom of Information requests. Within a year, dusty boxes containing anesthesiology logs, blood bank receipts, and committee meeting minutes were hauled into public archives. While names remained redacted, patterns emerged. Patterns showing systemic shortcuts, understaffed night shifts. Most damning, a memo warning that patient 42-1167 had a penicillin hypersensitivity. The memo was time-stamped less than 90 minutes before the fatal injection. With the evidence on the table, what does Jeff Chandler's life and death really mean to us now? On screen, Chandler is still the towering cochise who argued for peace, the somber general slogging through Burmese jungles, the brooding lover whose voice could melt even Joan Crawford's iron composure. Off-screen, he is now also a cautionary emblem, a man chewed up by studio workloads, betrayed by lax medicine, and silenced by legal settlements. The cross-dressing rumor? Maybe tabloid bait, maybe private truth. Either way, its very survival shows how sensational whispers can eclipse systemic failures that actually cost lives. In lecture halls, Chandler's case has become a staple example of anchoring bias and chart fatigue, warning new doctors that a single overlooked allergy can end a life and a legacy. Lawyers cite the sealed then unsealed settlement as proof that big checks rarely deliver closure. Modern viewers stream Broken Arrow or Merrill's Marauders with fresh eyes, sensing fragility behind the bravado. When Chandler winces after dismounting a horse, cinephiles wonder if that wasn't acting at all. Young actors studying the golden age see more than glamour. They see a cautionary tale about saying yes to every gig and trusting blindly in the system. Even the Screen Actors Guild has quietly folded Chandler's story into safety seminars. New contracts grant performers the right to second medical opinions, and guarantee allergy alerts are hard-stapled to set insurance paperwork. Every time a producer signs that clause, Jeff Chandler's ghost, silver hair, velvet voice, tragic X-ray, hovers over the dotted line. Which brings us to you, the audience. Jeff Chandler's fall wasn't a fluke. It was a domino run of exhaustion, missed warnings, and corporate spin. A single allergy alert ignored, a single artery nicked, and Hollywood lost a leading man. 2 children lost a father, and medicine gained a grim milestone. So what do you think? Did a 6-figure settlement buy silence? Or was it justice served cold? Should non-disclosure agreements ever bury medical truth? Drop your thoughts below, hit that like if you believe these stories matter, and subscribe for the next deep dive as we crack open more of Hollywood's buried files. Because if one superstar's truth stayed hidden this long, imagine how many more are still waiting to be pulled from the shadows.